AI is soulless. We get stuck in loops when we're trying to achieve something. So whatever it is, eventually you'll run into a barrier. Those directors and those DPs stop getting hired. I got the job, so I think it kind of proves that it's worth taking a shot. We all have amazing skills. We just need to
Cristian Rojas is an AI video lead at Superside. He has worked on projects for brands like Netflix, Canva, Adobe, and Placeit of Envato.
either because model limitation or because your prompt is not accurate enough. When that happens, the mistake most people make is
He's one of those rare profiles who sit comfortably in creative direction, systems thinking, and hands-on AI production. He's led massive AI dataset shoots and designed several multi-tool AI video pipelines.
that is way more valuable than probably a lot of people actually realize. And there's so much people that has a lot to offer within that area, and they just haven't discovered that yet.
Hey man, how are you?
Hey man, all good. Super happy to be here.
Same, so very happy to have you here. When did you start to define yourself AI creative lead?
AI creative, but that I think that started when I joined Supersite because that's my role, the company. Um, but I guess that I started playing around with AI probably around 2021. I
Mhm.
remember DALL-E 2 had just came out, and there was this tool by NVIDIA that acted sort of like as a canvas where you could draw on, and then something else would get generated on the right. It was a very, very early version of something like what we have in Crea right now. Uh,
Okay.
but happy too. And at the time, that sparked my curiosity. It's probably uh, the only other time that I felt something similar was back when I was like 15 years old. I had just discovered Photoshop, and I was using it to
Oh,
my friends' faces and just play around. Like, it kind of felt like that, like in a way that, oh, this is something that I can actually like use and like play with, interact in a different way with reality. But that was back like 2021, and ever since I've been just like using it gradually. I think AI video just really got good earlier 2025. This has been the AI video year for sure. More and more, as you know, we're using it on commercial projects, right?
yeah, it has become so good in comparison with the people dancing with all the noise and different made from a lot of images. It's so good now. I also remember when I started using Photoshop that you have this like thing that it was like a 3D stroke that you could make, and it was green or something, has like a weird color. It was like,
Remember that.
how do you
It
do
was
that?
the most random thing ever.
Yeah, it had the little feather in the presentation. I like that a lot. It was so nice to experiment with that. So it's so curious that we started taking it from there.
And I think it really starts there, right? Like with curiosity and with that like playfulness of just like using a tool you know nothing about, but suddenly you're able to create like really cool experiments and just really have fun. And I think everyone who just got into AI uh, a few years ago, that's how we started because it was really not good for any sort of commercial work. It was all like video like of people on acid morphing and doing really weird stuff, but it it sparks your curiosity, and I think that's what gets me still.
Yeah, totally. And what is and we have still to see where things are going, because if things are the way that they are now with the results that I saw in your website and your publications, that things are going to get uh, super good in a couple of years.
I know. I honestly think by mid 2026
Mhm.
we'll have like sort of like the missing pieces to create very realistic scenes, which I think right now it's just a matter of incorporating audio and lip sync. Like once we have those two missing pieces, we'll have like a complete scene ready to go. a very different topic is how much can we control that. I think that's going to come later on when we incorporate like 3D environment or more video to video specialized tools, stuff like that. But we're so close now.
Okay. For who is listening and maybe is not entirely sure, when you say video to video, are you referring to?
Um, well, so I made this post the other day on LinkedIn, and I got a lot of comments out of that one. Like, um, mainly mainly questioning. So basically, for context, this post was an experiment that I did, just very technical experiments and on how much I could push current video models to recreate emotional, like range within emotion, something like from sad to angry or angry to happiness, stuff
Oh
like
yeah,
that. And then
the
yeah,
expressions. Yeah.
or just like very subtle emotional cues, sort of like the moment right before someone starts to cry, right? So it's very like subtle micro expression. So I was prompting for that. And a lot of the comments that I got were around how AI cannot replace human emotion, which I totally agree. And
No resisting it.
but it was also around like how, like made me think about how or what would be the best way to actually prompt for stuff like that. And I think it's
Hmm.
not a matter, I think it's a matter of having different ways to input whatever we need out of the tool. And currently, that in a large part is mainly just prompting. But prompting, it's also very limited, like in terms of how do you describe a very specific emotion. That's why I feel like later down the line, specialized video to video tools sort of like will allow an actor to sort of like record themselves, train like a video model on maybe like their own expressions, their own particular ways of like expressing something, right? And I think that's where we're gonna see another leap, where we start to incorporate more hybrid approach to filmmaking. I think that's still a little bit down the line, probably like later in the year 2026, I guess. Um, but I think it's going to be a very exciting moment when that happens.
Yeah, and I don't know why people resist it that much. Like actors, I understand in certain way, but that already exists with 3D. You put a
Yeah,
mesh on someone's face, and you just replicate their acting skills into a character that it doesn't have their faces exactly. So it's not
it's
that
sort
deep.
of the same. We're just bringing some of those tools into generative, right? Um, for me, it's very like I like to make the analogy of like I was listening this to a very similar thing on a podcast the other day. So like when there was this transition from film into digital and how many DPs and director resisted that and said like we're not getting into digital because it's all crap. Like the quality's not there, the dynamic range is not there, like just the texture is all over and they just would not like try it. And then those directors and those DPs stopped getting hired until they incorporated the new technology. I think it's a similar situation now with AI. It's sort of like it's a tool. It's a tool. It's sort of like learning how to use like a camera system that allows you like new possibilities. I think it's very similar, right?
Yeah, and also when you start showing, because you can learn, you can experiment, but no one maybe knows because you don't post anything. And something that I have told to people that have spoken with me, creatives, and I tell them like, well, I don't see your work anywhere. How do you want to people know that you have these skills if you don't show them? And especially if you show them AI things, you get a lot of hiring requests, and people are getting interested on working with you. Can be full time, can be freelancing, but it's the opposite of these people that is resisting it. Is that you're gonna get less and less maybe competent because you're refusing to use certain tool that can give you so much custom or quicker or better results in some cases. And with this other uh, side of people that are embracing it is the opposite. They are getting so much success.
and it's crazy, right? Because a lot of the people who are currently resisting experimenting with AI, like even trying it, are very talented people that have all the foundations. Like the hard part, basically, like they spend years fine-tuning their skills, their taste, their eye to recognize what good composition is, to understand lighting. So they have all that knowledge, which is basically what you need to be good at like what we do. Um, and a lot of those people are just like not taking advantage of the wave. I think that's what's happening right
Mm,
now.
exactly.
Um, I mean, it is crazy, but I guess that's why like you do this podcast as well, and that's why also I have like this community that I host with a friend of mine. It's sort of like to get people excited about AI, to like basically just put it out there. And at least personally, I don't want to see a lot of my friends like not getting gigs anymore, not having jobs anymore. And I truly believe like AI opens up those possibilities. I'm not saying it's everything, but I do think it's quite an advantage to have that within your toolkit, right?
Totally. You just mentioned that you have a community with your friend, and that is related to creativity. And how does it work? What? Yeah, what do you do in it in that community? And yeah, tell me a bit more about.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So this is like a passion project that one of my best friends and myself like started about 5 months ago.
Okay.
So the story behind this, okay, so for context, this is a community for creatives where we
Mhm.
talk about AI, basically focus on creatives workflows, whether you're a graphic designer, an architect, filmmaker, illustrator, whatever it is, fashion designer. Um, we believe there's so many different ways we're building this community. We can all learn from each other and grow. Um, the reason why we started this is several years ago, like a lot of years ago, when my friend and I were just basically beginning our careers. He is a UX UI designer. Um, we we had a very similar thing happening here in my city, Guadalajara,
Mhm.
and it was free. There was free beer, and most important, yeah, that's always important.
El
You drink
Michelada.
food, but but most importantly, the talent, like the people who spoke there, you sometimes wouldn't believe it. Like there are some people that would randomly be here from Silicon Valley, and it was back on the time where startups were like happening, and Guadalajara was becoming like a main hub within Mexico for startups. And then just random CEOs would be in Guadalajara. Someone would know them, get invited, they would come and they would speak. And the beautiful thing about this is that it was free, obviously. And back then, I feel that allowed us to see a different world. I think in Mexico and a lot of Latin American countries, there is a trend, not a trend, but there is this sort of like mindset that we sometimes get into where we think too small and we stay stuck in the local landscape versus thinking big, thinking global. And I feel those sorts of events helped us understand there was a bigger world out there that allowed us to connect with key people. My friend got pretty much every job he's had because of the community. Um, I think he even got a girlfriend there. So I also got a few jobs, a few gigs, and I think we just owe so much to the people who like selflessly taught us like skills, soft skills, introduced us to other people within like the creative, basically the creative landscape. And at some point, all of those communities ended with COVID, and
Yeah.
there were none left. So a few months ago, we were talking and reminiscing about that, and said like, I wish that existed again. And we were thinking, well, yeah, but everyone who could actually organize this, they're either really busy or they're not in Guadalajara anymore. So at that moment, we kind of felt that responsibility and said like, well, I think if we're gonna do it, it's us. So we just started and we're basically funding it ourselves, getting sponsorships here and there to get free venues and trying to get someone to pay for the beer and like we can like make advertising for them. But our idea with this community is that it stays free forever and that it grows and that more and more people join. Actually, a few weeks ago,
Mhm.
another super exciter who was visiting, he gave a talk there, which was incredible. I'll share you the link later so people can see the stream.
Okay, perfect. Question about that. So it works like you book different places, different venues, and you invite people to go there and like connect.
Yeah, basically, like what we're trying to do is every single month we find a venue, whether that is a small bar, uh, a restaurant, a coffee shop, and then we explain the project. It's usually just like small, cool people, right? Because we have no money like to really do like something big.
Mhm.
So we're starting out small right now. Hopefully, we'll get the numbers to eventually find more serious sponsors that can allow us to grow and scale the event. For now, it's all self-funded between my friend and I. And basically the earnings for the venues comes from the people who buy like different things, like whether it's a coffee shop, they're going to buy more coffee or they're going to know the place. So it sounds like a win-win in that situation. But we've been lucky enough to find really cool people that let us into their space. And and then what we do is we try to bring in anyone who has sort of like some experience within the AI landscape creatively. And usually there's like a 45-minute to 1 hour talk about something they feel passionate about. And then after that, just a round of questions and then beer and networking. There was this one month that we couldn't get a speaker, so I did a workshop on Nano Banana just like to keep the energy going, which I might have to do again for this next month because also we don't have a speaker. So if anyone's listening and you are in Mexico and you would like to be a speaker at an event, please let me know. It's a very hard thing to do.
I would love to. I have no idea actually how to be speaker in places. I just did it once, like a public speaking with as an event in my. I was in a university in Cuba that I was teaching, but after that, I've never done an in-person like speaking before, and I've loved to, but I'm not sure how to do it. But it's something that I have in my goals for the next year.
I think you'd be great
Uh,
at it. Beer helps also, and that's why we also have free beer to get a little bit of.
Okay, and so someone that wants to go and speak that has to be in Mexico for that in the zone that you're going to do that. How do they know about it?
Yeah, I mean, they can follow us on Instagram. We're I, so kind of like
Ay, ay,
AI,
ay.
AI, AI, I dot it's LAT. That's how they can find us on Instagram. And yeah, just hit us up if you are nearby. Would love to have you over.
Perfect. How do you, I read that you work with Adobe and Canva and Netflix and a lot of the big companies. Do you get there because of this community that you were in, or what do you think that it was what helped you the most to get there?
That's a really good question. So I began my career in tech like late 2013, something like that. So I'm actually a graphic designer. Like I majored in graphic design. I worked as a graphic designer for a couple of years for some corporates. And then eventually I realized I was not a great designer. I still love it with all my heart, but I transitioned slowly into audiovisual. And late 2013, that's when I landed at Placeit, which was at the time a very small startup. I think I was the 15th employee, something like that. By the time I left 7 years ago, it had grown to something like almost 300 people. We had been acquired by an Australian
And but
company called NetBio. Yeah, exactly. And
yeah.
and I learned a lot there. I think that was my main school. I made amazing friends. The founder of Placeit, Navid Zapabaksh, he
Mhm.
he one of those brilliant creative minds. Very strategic, very methodic. He thinks like an engineer. He has a knack for business, as you wouldn't imagine. And I think part of the success of my career, I owe it to people like him within the company that taught me how to think differently. So being the 15th employee and we were just three creatives at the time, and the rest of the company were just engineers.
Mhm.
And I think spending so much time with engineers and being in the meetings and huddles with them teaches you to think in a more structured and strategic way, to ask better questions, to iterate more efficiently and be smart about the way you iterate. And I sort of like attribute a lot of my later success in different companies and in different roles to having this sort of like a hybrid mindset between thinking in systems and being creative about it. And I owe that to Place It in the early beginnings. Not just that, like Place It back then, it was just an amazing place to be. There was so much incentive to learn. Later, when I started leading teams within Place It, we had all this sort of like uh, coaching workshops internally. So we were all growing together. Obviously, the company was growing very fast. We were not prepared. None of us were managers. But we all learned how to be leaders and managers internally. That was a very just lucky time to be there. And that pretty much set up my foundations for everything else that came after, right? After Place It, obviously I
Oh,
stayed at Envato. Having Envato in my portfolio and on my CV helped a little, but it was really more like the mindset of what I could achieve and what I've done previously at Place It at Envato that allowed me and gave me like the courage of just put myself out there, start networking aggressively on LinkedIn, and just understanding that I could actually do really cool things for other companies as well, without thinking I could just work in Guadalajara. So I was by that time already thinking globally because I was already working globally and I was exposed to a lot of like global environments through Envato, working with people in the US, in Australia. So I think it really starts with the mindset, and that's what helped me a lot.
okay. That's so cool. I can see a pattern on what you're saying because I had a similar experience being in Cuba. I learned a lot of taking all these little tasks of making a contract, speaking with the client, presenting work, managing people by joining a small group of people that were doing some work and that already have customers. It taught me a lot. It was we had a group named Perspectiva that it was with two friend of mine, and but we were having like regular customers. We were doing stands, we were doing branding. Sometimes we had some international clients, and I can see that it's happens similar to that it happens to you. This person that has like 20 years more than me had a lot of experience with working with these people and had his clients and taught me a lot of things just to be around him
Yeah,
and delegating some tasks that he had and taking it on my own to grow the company. One day he left, he came to Spain and I was in Cuba still, and I had to take some of his responsibilities. And so I saw myself doing office remodeling. I had to like manage the people that I have no idea of model of like construction at all. I was so scared about that, but it gave me some confidence to see that I can take these kind of things because I have someone that taught me how this could work. So I I can see that it could be an advice for people that can be starting, but also if you want to like get a lot of skills, go to a small company where there is a lot of work to do and not that many people, where you can see how everyone does their job and get a overall perspective on how you integrate what you know with the other, and how does it influence on the rest of the activities of the company and what it makes it run.
Uh, I think you touched on 2 points that are super important, and I would add a third one. It's just like go to a small company that's highly organized and that has smart systems. Like as
Yeah.
if you can spot that, um, and that company allows you to like. I remember now it said like it's very special when you're in a company, and if you pull on this lever, you can see what happens with the data out there. So as long as you can see like that data, and you can have like that visibility on how your input basically affects what the customer or the user experiences. I think that's a very, very special place to be, and obviously like to grow. But the third point is
Mhm.
you mentioned this is really stepping outside of your comfort zone. And I think this also applies when it comes to AI. I think very similar to you, like you wouldn't have learned what you did in terms of managing people if you weren't willing to step outside of that comfort zone, if you weren't able to take on the challenge that at the time it was such a strange notion, like, with no basis or anything. And similarly, when I was in place at Envado, I had like 7 different roles while I was there. And each time I was terrified about taking on the challenge. I remember this one time, like we had just been acquired by Envado, and Navid came and said, like, okay, so now we need to hire 15 content reviewers to build the first worldwide content review team. Can you do it? And so I was like, fuck no. I have no idea. I don't hire people. Like I've never led a team in my life. But I raised the can and I said, yeah, I can do it. We had like a month to like 1 or 2 months to do it. So it was extra challenging, but sort of like taking on those sorts of responsibilities and just like being willing to do it and then being methodic about how you do it, like kind of like steps you into the next level. Now you have more skills and you use those to like go to the next and to the next ones. I think with AI, it's very, very similar because we're thrown so many different tools all at once, and everything's changing so fast all the time that you have to be comfortable with that level of change and adaptability in order to stay here, and to actually enjoy it. Because if you don't enjoy that sort of like level of of change, if you're not adaptable enough, it's really hard to progress.
That's a nicer one. I think that, yeah, a lot of people could get benefit of thinking in that way, instead of like just thinking, oh, I live in a small country, or like in a third world country, like I used to, or you live in like, you don't have experience, you don't have like, you can build it. I see that even now, and I'm going to jump a bit. I'm gonna take a little detour, but I'm gonna come back to the other places. I can see that you still are experimenting and putting things in your portfolio, even though you are working and have been working with big companies. You still experimenting and putting the things that you want people to see and want you test for yourself in your portfolio. So it proves that you need experience, but lacking experiences should not be an excuse to not aiming for getting higher in a good place.
Yeah, exactly. Coming back to place it, I applied for that
Mhm.
part-time photographer role, which was my first job at Place It and my first role in tech. I remember applying for that job, I think it was 7 or 8 times throughout the course of 2 years. That's how bad I really wanted to join that company because it was so cool. Like they had the whole Silicon Valley vibe with the ping pong tables and the beers and the garden. Like I really wanted to be there. But my skills weren't that great to be there yet. Like I had no experience as a photographer. And I remember at the time they really wanted like product photography because they were doing a lot of iPhone shots and stuff. like that. So I remember like submitting the first time, never got a reply again, and each time I would do it slightly different. I would look at what they were doing. I would try to copy and replicate. I would research who was the hiring manager. I remember I once went and left my submission directly at the offices. So I think that's another aspect to it. It's just like never lose the hunger to just like to be ambitious and to like go for it in any way you can. I think a lot of the people that like I know and that I respect, they have like that level of like competitivity with themselves and that ambition to just like go for it. And I think that's also what's helped me a lot, right? In my career, even joining Supersite, I think that was the hardest. Like I'm gonna say it like that because it's true. It was the hardest and the most work I've ever had to do to earn a job. Uh,
Yeah.
the test,
Why?
yeah. Well, I remember that I got 3 days to do two different
The
projects,
test.
the tests, and one of them was creating a UGC avatar, like like a UGC ad with an AI avatar. She needed to be speaking and representing a specific brand. And I had very little time to do it at the time. I hadn't explored that much with specific like voice lip sync models, stuff like that. I had been playing around with Midjourney and other tools, and obviously video, but not extensively when it comes to UGC. It was just a bunch of different tools. So it was a particularly challenging task in a very short amount of time. And I remember like working 3 days straight, like 20 hours a day, like super intense, and thinking I I really like this because if I don't get it, I gave it my absolute all. Like I'll know I need to like either upskill something or I need to get better at a specific part, which is this. So I think that level of enjoying that challenge, like the challenge, whatever it is, it's also very important.
Man, that's so that uh I think it's worthy of admiration. I admire you a lot for doing that. You can see when someone wants something and they are willing to get it, how they put the effort on it, and at the end, if it's not that, it would be the next one.
Yeah, and I think to be honest, to be completely honest, my test at Supersci, I'm not particularly proud of it. I don't think I did such a great job. And I remember I had just submitted my video,
Mhm.
and because I was already researching so many tools, it came into my feed a brand new lip sync model that worked so much better than the one that I used for my test. And I was immediately like, oh no. And like now someone else will use that and will take the job away. So I remember I obviously had no more time to do it again, but I remember uh writing a short rationale about this new tool, basically like, hey, this is brand new, this just released today. It works like this is actually better than the one that I used. And then I tracked my hiring manager's email address in a very like a stalker. I tracked who that person was. I tracked who the VP of my area was, and then I sent them an email, like both of them. I was very like nervous about doing that because I said I'm either gonna come up as like too intense and like, like no boundaries, or
Yeah,
they're actually gonna be good. I never knew, so if any of you are watching, let me know if that was actually good or not. But I got the job, so I think it kind of proves that it's worth taking a shot, like taking some risks and like shooting for the stars, whatever it is you want to achieve.
that's so nice. Um, I had a similar experience. It's not exactly the same, but just when just before I was gonna start to super site and I will start applying for jobs, I was not super happy with my portfolio because I think I didn't have enough skills that, or at least the ones that I have now. to make it the project's documentation look as good as I wanted. So I invest a lot of time and I do it in advance. I applied to Superstar, I think in May, and I started on January to make my portfolio better and better and better. And probably 50 or 40% of the projects were projects that I made for myself. And I went to some places and let my portfolio printed because I was like, I'm just gonna start applying to places until I find super science. And I fell in love with the web design and the illustrations that previously had. So I was like, oh my god, I would like to work in this place so much because of how it seems that they have been taking care of the details. I was afraid to apply, and a friend of mine told me, "You don't have anything to lose. You have another option, and you have this one, and just apply." And I did, and I applied like for 3 roles. I After I made all the tests, the interviews, I received an email that it says, "I'm sorry, your application was rejected, and thank you so much." And I was in the beach with my girlfriend at that time, and she was like, "Ah, don't worry, it's going to be okay." La, la, la. And I was like, That's weird. I think I'm good for this company." And I wrote to them hiring person that at that time was Dylan, and I told him, "Hey, I think I'm good for your company. I think you will miss something if you don't hire me. I think maybe I made a mistake and I would like to learn, but I think I can bring something good." And he told me, What are you speaking about? What what letter? What email?" It was like, email, and I sent him the email. And he was like, yeah, but that was for the other role you apply. We're gonna send you stuff in the next week, so don't worry." And I was so like, oh, so relaxed because it's my first big job. Besides that, I'm like in a small company and I had my own, but I was never had never applied for like super the level of this company, so I was a
That's
bit
so cool.
scared.
I think that's so cool, and I definitely believe that if we're interested in AI as we are, and I've heard you in your videos and like at work also like on the creative brieflies that you speak at, like we are undoubtedly passionate about this, and I think people like
Yeah.
us need to find that way wherever it is to be around, to be able to experiment with tools, to be able to play around. I think this is a place to be, and there are so many amazing opportunities out there. So yeah, I think it's just a matter of just going for it, right? Just like trying, putting work out there, as you say. Like I know I feel that need to do that just because I'm very curious. So I really want to know, like, oh, how is this new model handling complex human emotions, or how this model is complex handling dynamic actions, that's what I'm testing right now. Um, but also, I also have like this need to create, like outside of work, outside of technical tests. I really want to do more short films, for example. I'm not the best script writer, and I could benefit a lot of working with a small team, but there's also this need that I have to just play with it and just have fun and communicate, not because I want to achieve anything professionally, but because it's really fucking cool and we can do it. So I
Yeah.
think
Totally.
it's something around that area.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think my motivation in life it is to make things pretty. I like to make I when I see something that is not looking good and I have the capacity and it but also it matters when it changes. If I can make that change and have this kind of impact, it makes me so happy just to do that. So it motivates me a lot. Totally. I saw that you work as AI dataset production leader. What is that job about?
So I collaborated with as a external collaborator, like a contractor for Adobe and a few other companies that are smaller, um, on building data sets, which the purpose of a data set is to train a model. So,
Mhm.
for example, with Adobe, as we everyone that uses Photoshop, for example, we now have this harmonize button that when you click on it, you get basically everything that took me years to learn, which was how to mask, how to like color balance, how to add realistic shadows. And I remember there were so many memes back then, making fun of customers who wanted a fix it button. Well, now we have it. So that harmonize, that's a good example of how a data set works. It basically requires insane amount of images to understand lighting, to understand shadows, to understand different types of color balance. And I can't really go into the specifics of the technical tests that we did for that,
Yeah.
but I can share is that we shot tens of thousands of images to train the model. And obviously not just me, like Adobe has partners like that throughout the world. So we were several producers like doing this. Here in Mexico, it was myself and then another three people. I hired a crew of 20 photographers and videographers to work on this on different places. And obviously the amount of data that you require for something like that is huge, and it needs to be very methodical, right? So when you're doing a data set, you want to do it on something that is consistent and replicable, whatever the parameters are. There's obviously a very senior technical team behind this, all the engineers that understand how to piece all that content together, but the result of that is a specific type of content. So let me tell you another example of a different type of data set that I can actually disclose. Um, for
Yeah.
example, we were shooting 10-second scenes. This is with video of a person. It could be myself, and it was sort of like I'm having a dialogue with someone in front of me. Then something happens in the scene. Someone hands me a cup, and I drink from the cup. That's your first asset. Then the next asset would be the same, but instead of a cup, it would be a glass bottle, something like that. So we have everything intact except for this new element. Now, on the third asset, it would be exactly the same with the glass bottle, but I would be wearing a leather jacket instead. So we were doing gradual changes,
Mhm.
and we did that for 5 times, and that was one set. So this helped train video models in consistency of a scene while changing a specific object. The objects needed to be very specific and very standardized according to the use case, but you can see how that after tens of thousands of data points, you can help a model be good at something. So now we have models like Sync, like the model that helps you do lip sync, which is trained specifically on mouth movement. And it's really good at just that. Or you might have an image model that excels at sort of like vintage film like quality photos versus another model that might be very clinical and it's great for products or architecture. So it really depends on the data, the type of data, and that influences how different AI models behave. So that's what I was doing, just providing the real input, like the real like photos, the real videos, so these models would learn how to actually do it. It was
Okay.
very interesting, very technical, but very interesting.
No, that's great. I appreciate the technicality because it helps people to understand, and I think the technicality makes it seem less complicated and hard to learn than if you just let it in abstract. So you had to train, I suppose, the team of photographers that didn't know about how what to do with that data set.
Well, since we weren't actually doing anything with the data sets, like our delivery was the actual assets. What I
Ah, okay.
really what helped me with this project was again like back to system design and being able to run a production efficiently with very clear processes for everything because the volume that we were producing was massive and the room for error was minimal to none in a very short amount of time. So the success of this project really came down to logistics and process design. Um, there was this one data set where we had to shoot simultaneously on two different studio sets, dancers and athletes on a three camera setup for a very specific amount of time and throughout the entire day. So, for example, a basketball player would come in for 2 minutes, steps out, another one would come in. So it was like a machine of creating data. So we had a very large team managing both studio sets at the same time. We had on-site video editors, producers, videographers, directors. So it was quite large. And as you imagine, like I think we worked with something like on a single week, I think we worked with something like 300 talents. So the volume again of all of this is huge, and without like good process, without good organizations and logistics, it would have failed. I quite enjoy process design a lot, and I think that's also like a good example of why I am able to be very flexible in the roles that I've had. Like some of them have been more like on the creative side, some have been more like on the production side, creative direction. So I feel very comfortable like flowing within, and that's what I like about right now my role at Supersize. It is a very hybrid approach between technical, system oriented, creative. It's sort of like a blend between all of those.
Okay. Oh, that's so curious to know to learn about how we are creatives are involved in AI in the not in the creation but in the training. That's super interesting. That's super cool.
Yeah, it was really, really fun. It was 2 years. I mean, it's very exhausting. Also, as a contractor, you have to do like, the investment. There's no like all of these jobs. Very rarely you can rely on upfront payments. So it's really more like a also like a very entrepreneurial mindset where you have to feel comfortable in your skills and your network to be able to say, yeah, I'll upfront the costs of production and I'll get paid afterwards. So as I growing and working with more companies, the size of the projects also became larger and larger. I wasn't really comfortable anymore with the risk. I guess I hit a risk tolerance because on aiming on some of these jobs it was too high. So luckily also at the same time I joined Superside. So it was an amazing time in my career. But yeah, I think that chapter is now closed.
So you could say that maybe whenever you take a risk, have brought you the most return, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I there was this one project where I had to front something like 50,000 US dollars, which at the time I didn't have. So I had to like get some loans, and I knew my return was going to be significant if I actually pulled it off. But um,
Yeah, that's
I wasn't
risky.
sure. Like, it was very risky. It was very risky. And but I was confident that by the time I had already done several of those jobs, I already
Mhm.
had like a team set up for that. So at some point you have to just believe in yourself and take the risk. And I think it's true what they say. Like the bigger the risk, the bigger the potential reward. Um, yeah, I do believe in that. And obviously there's a limit, and it's also important to know yourself and to know how like how tolerant you are to risk in general, and just like be okay with it, because if not, well, stress will kill you.
Okay. Do you feel that you have had some other experiences in your life that gave you the confidence to take that level of risk that you just told me now? That I believe that is like, unless you have like an income that is way higher than that, and then it's not a risk. Where do you take the confidence in your past to take that kind of risk?
Well, I think for the most part of my career, I've sort of had like this imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
um, where I've never felt like, how can I say this? I I think for the most part of my career, I've always felt everything that I accomplished was due to luck. And I think this speaks more of like a self-esteem issue that I've been working on through like my entire life. And I think every time that I accomplish something new, it was like a small reinforcement to say like, yeah, maybe that was luck, but it cannot be all luck, right? Yeah, I got the job at Place It, that was luck. Okay. Now I'm a manager at Avado, that was luck. Yeah, now I got this job at Netflix, that was luck. So at some point you gotta like look to your own successes and recognize not everything can be just pure luck, but there is like actual value and there's merit in what you are doing. There's obviously, I do believe a lot in luck. There's obviously a percentage there that you got to be there at the right time, the right place. But for that to materialize into something, you also have to have actual skills to make it happen. So even if you find yourself being lucky, without everything you built up until that moment, if you don't have it, you're not going to get it. So I think I learned that slowly and slowly. I think it was just probably like a couple of years ago that I just started like having more confidence in my own skills and everything that I've done throughout the years. Um, and I think that just comes with time, repetition, and probably people that don't have traumas like I do. Maybe you have different types of trauma, but therapy has helped a lot. And just like, yeah, like giving myself more credit, basically. And I think we all have amazing skills. We just need to like believe in them. Like we actually like we most of us have spent the time about like doing something we're passionate at, whatever it is, even if that doesn't pay money, even if no one has ever paid you a single dollar because of that, there's something that you like to do. And I think that that is way more valuable that than probably a lot of people actually realize. And there's so much people that has a lot to offer within that area, and they just haven't discovered that yet, or they just haven't believed they can actually do it at a professional level. So I think it just takes a little bit of time. In my case, it took a lot of time. I'm getting there slowly.
I totally get it. To me, super size like has been a super high booster of confidence in terms of like technical skills, like realizing that all the gaps that I could have had from Cuba, it is like a small bubble. That there is a lot of things that don't work like the same that like the rest of the world, and seeing how people work and getting results and uh seeing how things work and repeat the repetition of good results, it helps a lot to build confidence. It have worked for me a lot, and I believe also that in what the example that you're telling me, examples, maybe the low self-esteem or the lack of self-esteem has helped you to say these things actually because you have overworked what and gone where no one has have been willing to do it, and maybe they have also the same insecurities but they are just doing something entirely different with it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I've never really thought about it that way. but I think we all have insecurities and like areas where we don't feel strong. Like I know I've been trying for a while to do content, like to start a YouTube channel. I love the fact, like I love what you do. I love the fact that you have this podcast. And I know
Thank
for the longest time I was being like very self-conscious about like doing something like that. I've just started doing it very recently. I'm about to release my first YouTube video, so I'm very, very proud of that. Um, yes, and I think
you.
it
Amazing.
comes the video by now it's already outdated, but I'm still gonna release it. And I think it really like that's actually like the mindset that I want to get into. Like who cares if I don't speak right on this video? Who cares if I say something that it's not completely accurate? Like who cares if it's a little bit outdated? Someone will find value. And I just feel it's important to get into this habit of repetition and just like doing the reps uh, before you can actually get good. Um, so I'm just starting to be a lot more patient with myself and in my upskilling abilities and in recognizing like, yeah, like you have this like this resistance on whatever it is. So instead of not looking at that, just like look at those and work on it. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be pretty, but as long as you do it, you'll eventually get somewhere. Like for example, right now, a really high resistance that I have within AI is Comfy UI. I've never felt I've always been very intimidated with Comfy UI. You have no idea how many videos and tutorials. I
Say
feel like I know how to use it, but I don't use it. I don't do it because I feel intimidated because of the high complexity of the setup and everything. So that's a personal challenge that I currently have for myself now that we have like a cloud version of Comfy, uh, to like stop making excuses and just like build something small, whatever it is, just like a couple of hours a week, playing around with it and something good will come out. I'm pretty sure about that.
totally. And the people that is seeing this, that I try to do the same. I tend to overthink a lot. Um, I want everything to be perfect. I want things to look super high quality. I like to take care of the details, but I don't have the time. I don't have the time, and it makes me paralyzed a lot of times to make this podcast. For example, the first episode of this I launched like 3 months ago, and I have been plus I have other things on my life like moving and changing and things, but I have stopped for a while to making YouTube videos because I wanted to make certain kind of videos that I didn't have the time to make. And I realized that maybe this is not the time for doing that. And maybe I just have to find a way that making something can be videos, can be AI projects, can be whatever you want to improve on. Do it with the less possible friction, like YouTube videos. Not try to make like too much motion graphics on it. Don't over edit it. Try to make it as raw as possible. And prepare your ideas in advance so you don't have to edit that much as well. Don't try
Yeah.
to memorize things.
As you've seen throughout this podcast, I talk a lot, and that is
I
very
like
dangerous.
it. I love it. That's what I want. Please speak.
That makes it difficult when you're recording yourself for YouTube. Like I just ramble on, so I really need to get better. Like script something for myself, or yeah, stick to some points.
I, I'm not making scripts anymore. Well, not anymore. Just one video that I tried. I just have bullet points, and sometimes I make slides so I can see and and remind myself of what I'm going to speak about. But no scripts because it is a to me it is a waste of time. I'm not going to follow it. I'm going to try to remember, and I'm going to be like, I don't I forgot what I had to say.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
What are the most common mistakes that you see in AI video creatives?
Well, I think we all do. It's very natural. I think we get stuck in loops when we're trying to achieve something. So whatever it is, eventually you'll run into a barrier. either because model limitations or because your prompt is not accurate enough. Um,
Mhm.
when that happens, I think the mistake most people make is get into this zone of frustration and then just try to like not like without really iterating in a significant way, they expect a different outcome, which it's never going to happen. So I think um it's best for all of us to get into the habit of being able to take steps back whenever we're trying to achieve something with AI. Because even as creatives, like if we are perfectionists, as I know you mentioned you are, I know I am as well. We sort of have this vision, and then we try to go for that specific idea. But sometimes it's best to step out, remove like our basically monocule, and then try to figure out how else can I actually approach this? Is there a different way? Like, what am I trying to convey here? So it's really about asking the right questions of whatever it is you're trying to do. Whenever you feel stuck, I think the best approach is ask yourself bigger questions about the thing you're trying to do. What am I trying to make someone else feel? Like, what am I trying to show here? So a good example is recently we were working on an ad for a customer at Supersite where the client wanted us to show a product being opened from a box, taken from the box, and being like shown. We're obviously not there when it comes to that level of capabilities with any AI model. So we tried it. We tried it a few times, wasn't working. So instead of trying to force our way into something that would have been either impossible or very complicated to achieve,
Mhm.
we instead thought like, okay, how about we, instead of doing that, we can show how the hands are about to open the product, but right before it opens, we cut and we see the character's face and see her how she reacts to the product being open. Then we cut back to the product once it's already open, once we can actually control that. So I think that's very, very like a simple example of how that basically tells like how we can achieve the same result in a very different way without having that tunnel vision of just doing it everything in one shot. And instead, we can cut it up into 3, 4 different shots if it still achieves the same outcome. And I think that's fundamentally what's currently different from traditional filmmaking, where we expect to follow a script to the detail with absolute control. Right now, we need to be fluid. We need to be flexible and find different ways to get there, even if that means bypassing the script a little bit. That's what I constantly
Yeah.
try to repeat throughout the projects. Like we have to have a flexible mindset when it comes to AI.
Okay. And also thinking about it, that's the same strategy that you used to enter in SuperSci to make the applications. You try again and again and again, and was it was SuperSci, and you change little things. You don't stop like repeating, just sending the same. You just take a step back, look at what you can change, get information, implement it, and try again. So it
Yeah,
seems to be a
definitely.
system that it is useful for multiple things.
For sure. I think there is this point where I have like always run, like this is my personal way of doing things. It's just like when it comes to images, I always run two at the same time. Usually that will be enough to allow me to understand a pattern because I'm already seeing two images generated with the same prompt. Um,
Okay. Yeah.
if you don't feel comfortable with that, you can always do four images at the same time. But the idea here is that you don't go over four because what you want to what you want to be able to do is to identify patterns as soon as possible. So you run a prompt with 4 images simultaneously. You have to stop and see what they're doing. What are they all doing? Are they, if they're not doing what you expect for them to be doing, like try to identify what the pattern is. So for example, I was running this prompt a few days ago where I guess I have a bit of dyslexia, and instead of putting the person looking to the right side of the frame, the person walking to the right side of the frame, I prompted for the person to be walking to the left side of the frame. But this was hitting in a huge prompt that I generated with ChatGPT. So I was getting frustrated, like, why is the person not going that way? And I was even using like visual cues like arrows, and the model was just so good at prompt adherence that it gave me exactly what I asked of it. So um I really like, what I should have done is just like take a step back and identify they're all looking at that side. So there must be something within the prompt that it's producing that. Sure enough, it was. But other examples might be less obvious, whereas your prompt might be perfect, but maybe it's a model limitation. So, for example, a person might, if you're trying to create a, I don't know, like someone running, or let's say someone wrestling, because that's super complex right now for AI, like complex dynamic motions. And you're trying to
Mhm.
prompt for that. And after 4 shots, let's say even 6 shots, you see the model is clearly not capable of producing that level of physics. That's when you want to change models instead of changing prompts. And that's what I mean about being strategic about how you iterate. You either change the prompt or you change the model. Or if both of those didn't work, then you change the approach.
Mhm.
But I think it takes like always do like maximum 6 reps of whatever it is. And sure enough, you'll have a pattern there that tells you what's not working. And once you find that, then it is not working. Try something else. Try a different model, try a different approach, try a different like prompt
And it saves a lot of time also,
and money,
and
credits.
frustration. That's super cool. That's a good approach. You do you have some examples of where AI has been used so useful in a workflow that you have got a big chunk of budget, or getting a super, maybe a super specific result? That's the most common thing, but some, I think that some people are not yet convinced on how much AI can save them some cost. And I think this is especially important for small companies or producers or small video teams that they don't have them too much budget.
Yeah, so I think basically everything that we're currently doing at Supersite, it's a good example of that. Um, I think but as you say, I think where right now, like people who should be taking advantage of this is for, like for businesses, especially when it comes to automation. It's so easy now to like do stuff that we previously couldn't. I know I'm experimenting with vibe coding. I'm experimenting with AI music. It doesn't mean that makes me a developer or a musician, but at least it allows me to put my ideas out there very early on and see if I
Yeah.
get any traction, right? Like, or start collaborating with an actual musician or with an actual developer. But now I have something to show. Now I'm able to communicate visually, like what my idea, how it should work. So similarly with um, video and AI images in general, I think that's a very powerful, like low touch, early version of what you can actually do, even if it comes at the proof of concept level. This was one of the first use cases where I leveraged AI as a cinematographer. I remember them. This was the first time where I went to DP a music video, and I thought to myself, had at the time I had been experimenting with Midjourney quite a bit, and I thought to
Sorry,
myself, now
when you say
instead of what?
Sorry. When you say DP, you mean direct production or something like that?
I mean, photography director, so a cinematographer.
Okay, perfect.
So I'm also a cinematographer, and I was doing I was doing photo for a music video.
Okay,
And I'm thinking like, what if instead of using Shot Deck, which is the site that I usually go for references on different movies and like all sorts of visual, I think it's movies, TV shows, and music videos as well. So what
okay.
if I create the references myself using AI? And that's what I did. I did my entire mood board and shots with Midjourney. And that was so useful because I was able to control lighting in that way. And then when I went to set, I used my AI references as my shot Bible to be able to set up my lighting, to direct my crew, and to produce an end result using something that I had previously thought in my head. So even if it's just at the pre-production level, it's so
Yeah,
useful to be able to dump your ideas into something. Obviously now we have that capability of going one step beyond that and doing an end-to-end production fully with AI as we do in Supersite. I think the very exciting possibility will come later in 2026 when, as I mentioned earlier, we have more tools that are like 3D environments where we can control cameras, where we have more video to video options, where we can um, guide very specific expressions and have sort of like a hybrid approach to filmmaking, where we incorporate both AI and traditional like workflows together in a more seamless way. Um, but yeah, I don't know if I answered your question. I think I rambled a little bit.
no, yeah, you did. Totally, yeah. And uh, I was speaking the other day with a friend that is working on a production company, and they invited one guy that was not didn't have enough knowledge to help them, but you can see the change because now they're eager to learn what they can do with AI, and they're putting people to experiment. And sometimes there are people that are not like super qualified, but you hear that someone knows AI and you hire this person. So that's something to consider. And I believe that maybe in small production places and things like that, they are a good niche opportunity because I maybe they are already. This is the moment where they're starting to look for people, seeing what AI video can do.
Yeah, I think foundations are so important. Whatever type of AI work you're doing, um, even if you're just vibe coding, as I very painfully learned myself while trying to vibe code a product that I was working on that eventually got hacked because my keys were exposed. What was the problem? It's that I don't have that. I don't have foundations. I don't have best practices that are just very simple best practices. I don't have those. So I'm not able to vibe code a product that scales or that has the minimum safety requirements. Um, so I think it's also very similar when it comes to AI music that I've been experimenting a lot with Suno lately. It's very
Mhm.
funny to give the tool to a musician friend and see how they do something way better than I could, or a writer that even though we have ChatGPT, I'm constantly amazed at what our writers at Superside do versus me. Like even with the tool, I'm not able to produce like that level of script. And similarly to image or video, when there's not a foundational set of skills there, if you don't come from an audiovisual world or a photography background, or you're not graphic designer, if you don't have that visual language, if you haven't learned that visual language, it's going to be very hard for you to use AI, even because it's like a camera. You can learn how to use a camera in a day or 2 days. That doesn't mean you're going to take good photos. So obviously, photography and AI are completely different. But I still think it makes for a good analogy.
Okay. What tools do you use commonly?
I I use a lot. I use a lot of tools. That's just because I constantly test a lot of things. So let me open here my. I can actually. Can I share screen here? No, right?
Yeah. You have share next to leave here
Yeah.
in the
So
bottom here.
you see
Okay.
um madness. So I'm gonna jump on something else just so you don't get like that huge. So these are the AI tools I currently use. So we have Weavy here, Crea, Runway, Freepik,
Yeah.
File, Midjourney. This is I rarely use this one, but I use it as my backup suite. It's OpenArt,
Okay.
Agen. This is Google AI Studio. I use it for its voice model, Gemini TTS, which is very very good. This is Sync, which I use it for lip sync. Enhancer, which has the best image model in my opinion. It's very slow, but whenever I need something super high quality in terms of skin, like a portrait or something like that, I'll use Enhancer. They also have like really nice models incorporated into it.
Mm,
Flow from Google, Hixfill, 11 Labs to do like voice changing. This is Luma, which I'm also currently exploring because of specific project.
okay.
Lovable for vibe coding, Suno, ChatGPT, obviously, and then I use N8N for like some automation, which is right now not not sure why it's not working, but I use N8 to automate different processes and stuff like that. So those are the tools I am currently using when it comes to AI. Um, there are a lot. I wouldn't say to people that they need to use all of them. Like whenever people ask me like what's one tool that I should use, I probably recommend Repick, not just because I'm a creative partner with them and I get benefits if you use my discount code, but I actually that's the one product that I pay annually. Well, that and Midjourney, I that's the only two that I pay annually. Um, the reason why I'm not recommending Midjourney over Repick is because Freepik really has like a lot of different tools there. It's very easy to use. It's less expensive than all the other suites that I know of, for example, Crea or Weavy or Flora. But I think it really depends on like your technical background. Obviously, you're super technical, you're comfortable with setups and everything. Comfy UI is super powerful and it allows you to use open source models not available anywhere else. So I think if you're comfortable with that, it's definitely worth going and checking it out. Obviously, there's some limitations to Comfy UI, and for really fast like outputs, probably using a suite or a cloud-based approach is best. So all the tools I shared there like serve different purposes, and I use them sparingly for specific use cases. Some more than others, but I have them there because I do use them.
Okay.
There are obviously
That's a
way more
lot.
tools. There are way more tools that I've used that I've unsubscribed for. Obviously, like as you can imagine, my AI tool budget it's quite high. But
Yeah.
I it's
But
it
do you
is
have
like
any strategy?
what's that?
Do you have any strategy to not go to reduce that budget?
I have an Airtable where I keep track of any subscription that I sign up to, and then I will monitor that Airtable. Like currently, my expenses shouldn't go above 400 US dollars per month. So anytime I go beyond that, I'll just unsubscribe to something. It's quite a high expense, but at the same time, I consider this like as part of my job, and it helps me a lot to be able to test anything as soon as it comes out. And we're constantly seeing like different tools coming out in different places or more specialized tools that I'll just test once. For example, there's a really cool tool called Beeble AI, and that works for um, compositing, relighting. It allows you to take a video and then remove the background, um, change the lighting. It's a really cool tool for 3D workflows as well. It's way more
Okay.
specialized that what my skill set allows for right now. So that's why I just tested it for a bit, see what I could do. Now I'm aware of it, and if a project comes along where either me or one of our creatives needs to use it, I'm able to point it out and to tell them how it works and then let them experiment. But for that, I need to test it myself first.
That's so cool. And yeah, it doesn't seem crazy the budget at all. That's kind of the same that I spend on AI, and it's totally worth it. It sometimes it feels like, oh my god. I started I spent like 2 years with no calculating it, but when I started, I was like, oh my god, how many tools? But it pays off.
I think like in our case, right, it's our job. Like we have a salary that we earn because of AI.
Also,
So me, it makes sense. Like, okay, so let me just spend a percentage of that and to like keep myself up to date with everything that's coming out.
Yeah, so I was saying that as long as I don't go like above my budget, I'm comfortable with that amount.
and for someone that is starting, I would, yeah, recommend the same, that don't have to make all the try to pay for all the AI tools. Just start with a versatile one. I use Crea instead of FreePic because it is the same principle of versatility. A lot of models in one tool with a cheap subscription, and
Yeah.
once you learn the basics of prompting and enhancing and on the whole workflow, you can maybe go to more specialized one, but it, you don't have to like start like that for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. I also like to point out to foul or replicate if you are not really ready to start like generating like complete workflows with AI. I think foul is just a super cool tool where you can just um like fund your account with up to $10, I think, and
No.
you don't have a limit of the amount of time. I think that's true. Like you can keep those $10 forever, and then you could charge specifically for generation. So you can experiment with a lot of basically all sorts of different models from video to image to like some more like open source models. It's really not meant for a creative workflow because of the way it's set up. It's meant for APIs. But
Mhm.
since they have their sandbox environment where you can test the models, I think it's really, really good just for curiosity to know, like, oh, what does this model do? Like, I've heard so much about VO3, but I don't want to pay Flow, so I can just spend like $10 here and generate a few videos with it and see how that works. So I think there's so many ways to like get hold of the best models without spending a lot of money.
That's super interesting. As we can maybe put also that the link in the description.
Yeah, I
But
could share also like super quick here. Like, so this is file right
okay,
here, and
perfect.
when you like click explore over here, you
Mm-hmm.
can see like all the different models they have. Like if you click here on view all models, you'll see on the left you have 3D to 3D. So that means you provide a 3D output and you get a 3D out. I haven't explored this to be honest. You have your
Mm-hmm.
typical image to image, text to image. So for example, something like text to image, over here,
Uh-huh.
we have 116 models. So if I click here, I will see all the different models available. You can sort them out by trending. So you see here like Flux, Bria. If we scroll down, we'll find somewhere like Nano Banana and all of those. Similarly, if you go to text to video, you'll have like sort of like the
Like
top models, Kling, VO3, Halo. So there's so many options here. And all you have to do is just like fund your account with a few dollars, and then you get to try and pay per generation. So for example, something like VO3 fast version here, it costs $75.75 to run a 5-second video. So if you fund your account with $10, you have a lot to play here with. If you're just experimenting, obviously.
that's so cool. You have everything organized, so you can. There's also a catalog where you can see what are the tools that are out there,
Yeah,
and pick the best. That's
exactly.
so great. When you're going to do a project, what part do you delegate to AI, and what part do you create or think or make traditionally?
I think that's a good question. I think it really comes down to your expertise, how comfortable you are with different parts of the process. Later, in a few months, it'll depend on how you want to approach this. So there's this short film that I love by Darren Aronofsky that he made like 5 months ago called Astra. And I loved it because it's a mixture of real filmmaking, like with a real camera, and AI. And it's blended so seamlessly within a such amazing, heartwarming story that you forget about what you're looking at. I remember watching it, and at the beginning, I was trying to spot what was AI and what wasn't, which I'm able to do, but it's pointless because the story is so beautiful that at some point it's just blended into like the narrative. I think that's a really good example of like how much do you delegate and what you delegate. I think it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to tell a story, a short film, that it's a personal project, obviously your own voice, your idea, your soul, it's embedded into that whatever tool you use to bring it to life. If you are an illustrator and you want to start off like the actual visual process based on your own images and then use AI to generate additional assets from those, that's another way you can do it. If you are an actor and you want to record yourself and use a video to video tool to drive the performances, that's another way you can do it. So I think there's so many different ways. Like if you're a musician, you can like create the music yourself. Ultimately, I think it's a matter of what you feel comfortable. In my case, I know I've been wanting to do a short film where I take photography, like still photographies, and use those as initial frames and then use AI to animate those. But I think those are just like experiments, and there's just like wants that I have, and just ways of being playful. But you could as easily do the entire thing with AI and still be you. And I think that's the main point that I want to come and I want to get across people. It's just like it's true, AI is soulless, but you're not, and you're driving. So as long as you have something to tell, your voice will come through. Um, so yeah.
That is so cool. Thank you so much, Christian. This has been super nice, and I'm very happy to have had this conversation. And I hope we have a new one, maybe about metrics and content, because I see you have done some content, strategy and stuff, and it's something that I would be super interested in knowing. So maybe we can make a second one soon.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me. And if you're ever in Guadalajara, I would love to have you over
Mm.
at Ay Ay Ay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.